Hey, what's going on YouTube? Storm here with another discussion video today, talking about the term degenerate. This has become you know how words become buzzwords, and this has been a new buzzword, and I think it's being misconstrued, misused. Now, to me, obviously, everyone has their own interpretation of what degenerate is. Now, I think there is a big difference between a generic good card and a degenerate, what degenerate means to me. Now, degenerate to me is defined by a deck. It's not a card. I don't think cards themselves can be generic, in my opinion, personally, or can be degenerate by themselves. It's what they combo off of that could turn them into that. But I think decks that fit under the degenerate category would be, decks, FTK type decks that have very little interaction with your opponent. This fits into the Chain Burn, the Yugioh, the Chicken Race FTK, similar decks that basically have very limited interaction between the two players. We all don't like playing Chain Burn. We don't like playing decks that have very little interaction with us, and we just lose for dumb reasons. And I think that there's a big difference between what I call degenerate, which are those particular decks fit in that category, and then we have like borderline degenerate, which I feel like is something like Ghost Tricks, where it doesn't really have a win condition, but it's not really, it's very close to degenerate, but not there quite. So generic to me means something that you can use as an engine, meaning, and particularly this topic was formed because some players, a particular player in the comment section on one video mentioned that he thinks Tour Guide is a, quote, degenerate card. Now I will say, full disclosure, I'm biased on Tour Guide. I love Tour Guide. I feel like Burning Abyss, I would wish that Konami would hit Burning Abyss rather than hitting Tour Guide, because Tour Guide is a generic card. I always say, hit the deck, not the support. And that's what Tour Guide is. She is support, generic support for Burning Abyss. So my thing on generic cards, a good example of generic engine would be something like Tour Guide, something like the Star Seraph engine, the Clown Blade engine, etc. Those are generic engines. I feel like the word degenerate is very, very misused and overused. Now, as far as Tour Guide is concerned, what would I have Konami do if I'm Konami? What would I have them do? I would have, I think Burning Abyss, probably after their Nats top, are going to get some hits. So what would I hit? Possibly hit Dante to 2, because I don't want the deck to be completely unplayable. I just want it to be a bit more fair. Fire Lake is something that I don't think, it's not the problem. I think the problem are the original 2 Malabranches, which are Graft and Sir. So Tour Guide is a very good generic card, but she's only as good as what she pulls from the deck. And in this case, the problem clearly is Graft, because Graft, what makes Tour Guide and Graft so good together is Tour Guide and Graft together. If you open Tour Guide Fire Lake, you have an instant Fire Lake setup. And that is the problem, I think, with Tour Guide and Burning Abyss. That's why she is currently placed in the TCG at 1. Now, is Tour Guide a degenerate card? Absolutely not. If you say Tour Guide is degenerate, you also have to say ritual support like Manju is degenerate, which it's not. It's ritual support. I feel like the word degenerate is one of the most overused words in the Yu-Gi-Oh! In the community. I feel like people need to understand the difference between a degenerate. I think decks themselves are degenerate, not the support cards. In this case, we're talking about support. If we're talking generic Fiend type support, we're talking Tour Guide. So my opinions on the whole degenerate thing is I feel like people need to slow down and stop themselves before they call a card or generic support cards degenerate. Because when we have things like this happen, typically this is why Burning Abyss is the reason why we have one Tour Guide. And that's something I had to accept after the last ban list. However, I would much rather, in my opinion, have Konami hit the top tier decks and not hit the generic support cards like they did in the April list, hitting Preparation of Rites and Tour Guide from the Underworld. And the same thing applies to the July list. I do not want Konami to touch Manju. I want them to hit Unicorn and other Necros cards, because it ruins it for the decks that, a lot of decks such as Heralds are very unplayable right now due to the prep hit. So in summary, I think the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community needs to use the word degenerate in a much less leisurely fashion and put it into a certain category. So anyway, guys, I'd like to thank you for watching this video today. I really appreciate it when people watch my videos. Tune in on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And if you like what you saw from this video, please subscribe. It's Storm signing out.